Hey guys, it's Marsa. If your drawings looks like they were made by a bunch of different people and even after all those YouTube videos you're still searching for your art style, then you're in the right place. In this video, I will not only break down a system to help you find your style, but I will also share some practical tips and exercises that I really wish I knew when I was searching for mine. And before we jump in, please give this video a thumbs up. It really helps more people find this video and my channel. Thank you for your support, guys, and let's dive in. And to give you guys a better idea where I'm coming from, I feel like it's kind of important to share a bit about my background. So I spent years studying at art school as a kid, then went on to college where we covered like everything from drawing and painting to even sculpture. And I got really good at copying, but creating my own ideas was a different story. I stuck to all the rules and kept drawing from photos all the time. Eventually, I started feeling trapped by realism, and the fact that I couldn't create something from imagination only fueled a whole bunch of insecurities. At some point, I realized something was off. Copying didn't feel meaningful to me anymore. I wanted my work to have its own voice, like to people look at it and just know that it was mine. So I started trying everything. I watched random YouTube tutorials, took all kinds of 2D graphics courses, stylization workshops, illustration classes. And yeah, all of that helped me improve my skills and learn new techniques, but I still didn't feel like I had my own style. I could draw in different styles, sure, but it was basically just copying someone else's style, not mine. I had no idea what I wanted to draw, how I wanted to draw, or even where I was trying to go with it all. Looking back now, I can see I just didn't have any kind of system, I was all over the place, and to be honest, I put way too much pressure on myself, which only made things worse. And to me, before you even start searching for a style, it's kind of important to understand what style actually is and what makes it up. And I'm not gonna hit you with boring definitions from Wikipedia. I don't want you falling asleep here. So let's just get right to the good stuff. Here are a few elements I would pay attention to when it comes to finding your style. First up, there's the level of simplification in elements. Basically, how minimalistic or detailed does the style look? For example, when comparing these two pieces, it's easy to see that in this one, the facial features are super simplified, whereas in the other one, everything is drawn with a more realistic level of detail. Next is the amount of volume or depth worked into the piece. An illustration can be completely flat, using just colors with no hint of shadows like in the first example, or it can be super three-dimensional with all the tones, midtones, and dramatic shading like in the second example. There's also a middle ground where basic colors and flat shadows are used to suggest volume. Then there is a line work or outlining. Some styles use lines to define silhouettes or edges of objects, and the character of that line, like its thickness, flow, and color, all play a big part in defining an art style. Shape design is another one. What kind of shapes does the artist use in their style? And what vibe do those shapes have? Are they soft or sharp, round or pointy, static or dynamic? So, for example, looking at the piece on the left, you can tell the shapes are kind of flowy and soft, but still dynamic, right? While in the other one, they're sharper and more angular, with square and triangular forms. After that, there is a color palette and the kinds of colors the artist uses. Are they bright and bold or more muted? Are there certain patterns or combination they stick to? Like Wu Liu's work, I hope I pronounced their name correctly, is usually in muted tones but has these bright, contrasting details that make it super vibrant and stand out. Sasha Frantsova, on the other hand, keeps her color palette pretty restrained with grayish colors, which makes her art style very recognizable. Then there is a medium or technique the artist works in. For example, are they working digitally or traditionally? And what tools do they use? This can include brushes, textures, effects, and all that good stuff. Lastly, there is a stylization which has a huge impact on style and pulls together a bunch of elements, like shape design, distortion of proportions, simplification of details, and the artist medium. Basically, stylization is how an artist mixes all these elements in their own way. These are just a few of the key components of an art style, at least the ones I think are most essential. There are so many other factors too, and feel free to add more ideas in the comments. Using these elements, you can start analyzing other artist styles and also do some self-reflection to find patterns in what you enjoy creating and what you don't. I will explain this in more detail a little later on. And now I want to share the exact system that I felt was missing when I was trying to find my art style. Step 1. Decide what exactly to focus on. Portraits, landscapes, concept art, etc. If you're unsure what you enjoy the most, start by figuring out what you don't like. Basically just narrow it down. I used to draw a bit of everything and felt lost not knowing what I actually wanted to focus on. But after looking back at my work, I realized I was mostly into portraits and character design. So I put about 80% of my drawing time into those and let myself play around with landscapes, still life, and random experiments for the other 20%. And step 2, focus on fundamentals. Things like anatomy, values, perspective, and more, depending on the direction you're aiming for. And there are core skills that apply to any style, like composition, volume, color theory, etc. And this is a really important step. And I know a lot of self-taught artists tend to skip it, which can make finding a personal style even harder. For instance, if you're aiming for a character design, you've just gotta work on your anatomy skills. And once you feel solid with human figures, you'll be able to play around with proportions and create unique stylized characters with ease. Step 3. Pick out a few artists you really like and dig into what makes their art style cool. Sometimes it's hard to know exactly what we're drawn to, but here are some things to look at. Like, how do they stylize the work? Is it more simple or detailed? What colors do they use? And do they have any unique touches that stand out? Also look at their shape design, like whether they use sharp or soft shapes, and see if they outline things or skip the lines altogether. And also think about whether their style is super flat or has this three-dimensional look. Try to find what connects the artists you admire, like patterns in their style or colors, or even certain ways they handle shapes or lines. Basically, look for the stuff that all your favorite artists have in common. That's usually a good hint about what you're into. Step 4 is self-reflection. Basically, figure out what you like to draw and what you really don't. This is super important because sometimes we're all about certain art style, but when we actually try it, the process just isn't fun for us. For example, I asked myself if I liked line art, and I was like, yeah, totally. But then I thought about whether I actually enjoy making line art. And the answer was no, I just don't like the process and it just feels boring to me. That's how I realized line art just doesn't fit in my style, even though I love looking at it. I did the same for all the other parts of style we talked about before and found that I like detailed work, solid volume, some exaggerated proportions, and those sharp dynamic shapes. And I'm also into muted colors with a few bright pops here and there. So listen to yourself, try everything out, and notice what feels good to you and what doesn't. The last 2 steps are something you can keep coming back to, like every month or 2. Maybe start a journal to jot down how your taste changes over time and keep track of which styles or elements you're sticking with and which ones you're letting go. And now let's talk about some exercises that really help the system work to its fullest. These were super useful for me when I was trying to break out of realism and get more freedom in exploring my style. First, copy your favorite artist as an exercise. You can copy the whole piece or just a part of it, depending on what grabs you in the work. For example, I'm a huge fan of Max Gricky, so I tried to study their shape design by sketching based on their work. This exercise really teaches you how to draw specific things. And yeah, in the beginning, it can be tough to catch certain style elements from a specific artist, but it gets easier with time and practice. Second, follow along with other artists. This is all about finding a workflow that feels natural to you. So try out different ones and see which suits you best. For example, I followed along with Aloysia's process, basically her steps for creating an artwork. And it really clicked for me. And over time, I refined it into the process that I use now. And if you're totally unsure where to start, you will probably need to invest some time in testing out different methods to see what you like and what doesn't work for you. There are tons of free tutorials from artists sharing their process step by step, so try a bunch and rule out whatever doesn't feel right. Here is one of my favorite exercises. Draw one character in 3-5 different styles. It's a great way to find what clicks with you. Pick a character that's well known so they have recognizable features. Back in 2021, I drew Phoebe from Friends in styles like Tom Cruise's, Disney, and The Simpsons. The result was, well, let's just say interesting, especially the Disney one. But the exercise itself got me out of my comfort zone and helped me realize that I could do more than just realism. Actually, maybe I should make a new video where I draw one character in 3 different styles. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Next, limit yourself to a few tools. For example, try sticking to just 2-3 brushes and use only those to create at least 10 pieces. I had this problem where I kept jumping from one brush to another, thinking that my style depended on the brushes artists used, and maybe there is some truth to that. I bought all sorts of brush packs from different artists, but honestly, I didn't really know how to use them. Having tons of different brushes actually makes the drawing process harder. So at the beginning, I recommend sticking with just 2-3 basic brushes. And once you're confident with those, start adding new tools to your process, but go one thing at a time. Another one, and you've probably heard of this, is mixing elements from different artists. Basically, you take one aspect from each of 3 artists and combine them to create your own style. This exercise might work well for some people, but honestly, it didn't work for me. I just couldn't tell what looked good together or not, if that makes sense. Instead, I stuck with a style I knew, which was realism at the time, and slowly added 1 or 2 elements from artists I like. Maybe you love the way someone draws a certain hairstyle. Try adding that to your own work. Just remember, this isn't about copying exact details like in the first exercise, right? It's more about capturing the feel of something and blending it into your own style. For example, in this piece, I loved how the artist did their hair, so I tried adding that effect to my character's hair. Try joining challenges like Draw This in Your Style. There's such a fun way to practice and dig into your style. Focus on picking out the main features of the character and using the original as a guide. You can even make a quick list of what stands out about this character, like purple hair, blue headphones, face tattoo, and then redraw them using other references that help you. The idea is to capture those key traits, maybe with a different pose or expression, without copying the character exactly. And last but not least, experiment with different materials. In art school, I tried things like dry point etching, and now when I sketch digitally, I love adding those rough textured effects like you see here. If you work digitally like me, I totally recommend adding some traditional materials to your routine, like pencil, watercolor, gouache, or whatever you're drawn to. And here are a few more key tips that can make a huge difference in how quickly you find your art style. First, and super important, build up your visual library. Get into the habit of saving images you like on Pinterest or Instagram. Having a strong visual library not only helps with finding inspiration, but also with developing your taste. So basically, the more you look at other artists' work, the easier it becomes to shape your own unique style, as you're filling your mind with a wide range of images, concepts, and styles. Second, and just as important, take notes. This helps you stay consistent with your style. I know it can feel like a hassle, but imagine this. You get some amazing results in a piece, but the next time you sit down to draw, you totally forget how you did it. It's frustrating, and you end up spending time trying to remember which brush you used or how you achieved that effect. And by then, the moment's often lost. I used to take super detailed notes either on a new layer or in the notes app on my iPad. I'd make notes about which brushes I used, how I created shadows, or which blending modes I applied. So there is no specific format, just write it down however feels right to you. Or even better, record your screen while you draw, so you never miss a step. Be patient and go easy on yourself. I get it, it's so tempting to want everything to come together right away, and it's tough when it doesn't. But here's the thing, putting pressure on yourself only slows things down. Give yourself time and don't be afraid to make crappy drawings. It took me 2 years to find my style, and I lost count of how many shitty drawings I made along the way. Just see each piece as a learning experience. Don't dwell on the ones that don't work out, and just keep moving forward. Remember, your path is your own. Look at other artists for inspiration and learning, but don't let unhealthy comparisons hold you back. I asked you guys on my Instagram to share your struggles with finding your art style, and a lot of you had similar questions. So I picked the most common ones, and while I might repeat a few things, I think it will help to give some clear answers. Not at all. I feel like society pushes this idea that you need to be recognizable to be successful, but honestly guys, just look at artists like Picasso, Van Gogh, or Salvador Dali. They didn't stick to one style, and neither do you. In today's world, it's more about finding balance and setting clear goals for yourself. If your goal is to be recognizable, then focusing on one main style could make sense, while using others for commissions or experimenting. And remember, your style will grow and evolve with you, and in 5 years it might look completely different, and that's okay. For me, I would say it's when you know exactly what you're doing and each step is planned out. You know your workflow, the colors you're going to use, the tools for each stage, and you can pretty much predict the final result in your head. In the early stages, it might feel a bit chaotic, and that's totally fine too. Honestly, it's absolutely fine to experiment and explore different styles. Just look at my work, I think I tried almost everything at this point. The key is to eliminate what doesn't bring you joy. I remember the first time I drew this picture and, it just clicked. I thought, this is it, I'm close, and it brought me more joy than anything else I'd drawn. So I quickly noted down everything. The brush I used, the workflow, the facial features I emphasized, like sharp lines, big eyes, graphic eyebrows, and even effects I added, like blurred background, glowing lights, and rim lighting on the face. I just realized I loved rendering and working with volume. And this naturally ruled out a lot of styles I'd been trying. But I still kept certain elements from those experiments to incorporate in my own style. So be patient and explore as much as you need to. Your style will find you. Just don't stop and keep listening to yourself. I know it was a lot of information, and there is no way to remember it all in one go. So I would definitely recommend you coming back and rewatching this video in 2-3 months. You'll pick up so much more, I promise. If you still have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up to help it reach more people. I will leave a free cheat sheet for this video in the description below, and a more detailed self-reflection guide will be available on my Patreon. Thank you so much for your support, guys, and see you in the next video.